Thanks so much, Kayode, for joining us this morning. Well, we're slowly starting to see some encouraging views on the market. Local investors, though, seem to be quite under pressure with finances strained and so cashing in some of their chips at the stock market. Just how much of a pressure point do you see this being moving forward?
Thank you. It will be a big pressure point. The majority of margin loans were in bank shares. So what we're going to see going forward is that there were a lot of movement in the bank share volume, and what we're seeing is a lot of the margin holders of margin, those margin loans, once the bank shares appreciate to a certain level, they take profit to try and pay off those margin loans, and we will see that going on for at least the end of this quarter and probably most of Q1 next year as well.
Of course, we have had Central Bank Governor Lamido Sanusi in South Africa, in Cape Town, over this past week. We chatted to him yesterday on the show about prospects for the banking industry as a whole moving forward. What have you made of his latest comments and about the fact that they are starting to see some investor interest in recapitalizing these banks, but it is going to take time before that comes to the fore and before any asset management place that's effective enough actually gets put in place?
Yes, he made some very good points, which were quite interesting. I think firstly on the asset management company, it's a bit optimistic to expect the asset management company to be in place before the end of this year. There are three major pieces of legislation in Parliament at the moment in Nigeria. That's the Petroleum Reform Bill, the Constitutional / Electoral Reform Bills, and also the 2010 budget expected to come into Parliament within the next few weeks, and that's going to take a lot of legislative time. So I think it's optimistic to expect them to pass any legislation on an asset management company before the end of the year, but who knows? I expect more likely Q1, Q2 next year. In terms of interest in the Nigerian banks, there was always going to be interest. A number of the banks have a very good branch networks, like Oceanic, Afribank, have a large branch network, and for any new player into the industry, especially foreign investors, it gives them a platform where they can immediately go in and have a branch network of about 300 across Nigeria. So there's always going to be, there was always going to be interest. Now the issue was how were they going to be able to buy into this? As companies, and what are going to be the liabilities if this asset management company was not in place to take over some of these bad debts. Now that has to be cleared up, and also what needs to be cleared up exactly is existing shareholders. There have been conflicting signals both from CBN and existing shareholders about the exact position of these existing shareholders and whether they will accept new investors coming in and taking over some of these banks.
Of course, the market is also waiting for bated breath for financial releases out of these troubled banks as well. I mean, are there any indications of how soon we could possibly start to see earnings reports trickle in from these players as opposed to from the stronger ones that we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks?
Well, CBN sent out a circular this week asking all banks to report their September 2009 figures according to a new format. They put a format which provides more information on the banks. Now, the circular was sent to all banks, and they have until 30th of October to comply and publish these results. So what we're expecting is that all 24 banks in the country will follow this, and then we'll be able to see in this new format, which provides a lot more information for both investors and shareholders on the performance of the banks by 30th of October, and that should give us more information on how all of them are doing.